So my experience is 90% of the time, any business can be fixed. Any broken business can be fixed. 10% of the time, you're screwed and there's nothing you can do. Sometimes there's externalities. Sometimes it's a competitive landscape issue. Sometimes it's an economy issue. There's a whole bunch of reasons why, sometimes it's just unfixable. The one complete failure that I had, business that just went to zero.
Hello there and welcome to Skyman and the Bug. I'm the Bug and that is
the Skyman.
We are here to build relationships, technology, and work on the many wonders of being a business owner and a nutcase. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to you listening to us, laughing with us, and taking the journey with us as we build businesses and relationships. And welcome again to another episode of Skyman and the Bug. My name is Nikkei Roach. I am the Bug with my co-host, Josh the
Skyman Schumisky.
And if you haven't figured that out yet, we are a nutty bunch of C-suites who get together once a week to share ideas with founders, starters, wannabes, CEOs, C-suites, and people who are out there just thinking about growing their business, but also creating those relationships that last some troubled waters. And if you know anything about business, there will be troubled waters. And if you think your life is perfect, you haven't hit those public troubled waters. And today we have the honor of having another guest. And before I introduce him, and I'm telling you, this guy is like the bee's knees, I want to ask you to remember to subscribe. If you've not hit subscribe on either YouTube or any other podcast formats that you see us on, go ahead and subscribe. That way you'll get updates every week that you'll see us here. But today is David, and not to be call him named Davey because that's what his dad calls him, David Guttman, who is not only the CEO, kind of like somebody where other people who've exited, he's exited multiple 8 and 9 figure businesses, but he's not, the highlight reel you would normally hear. He also hosts his other podcasts on another channel. So you definitely want to go ahead and look him up because I'm looking him up right now as we speak. But his level of success is not what a lot of people think. Sometimes when they think of success, they think, oh, he had a great time. Oh my God, he was on this magazine or he was showcased on this Business Insider or whatever. This is David, but he's going to, through our interview, hopefully share some of the insights about relationship, building businesses, how to exit them properly with your sanity and most of your health still intact. So David, thanks for being here.
Thanks for the intro and thanks for having me on, guys.
You are so welcome. Thank you as well. So I started out with the 8 and 9 figure. I know a lot of people think that's the great highlight reel. What moment would you say is not necessarily the truth about that term? I'm an 8, 9 figure exit. Talk me through that back figure or that backstory that got you to that point, and then what people don't know that you know now that you've exited a couple times.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So, the 8 and 9 figure exits were actually working for the same CEO. Not necessarily the nicest guy. So I made a lot of money for someone who wasn't my biggest fan, ironically. And so it's an interesting journey to basically do things on your own and then to do them under somebody else. They're very different. In fact, one of the biggest pieces of advice I give people, I give it to my daughter, in her career, path, but anyone that I mentor, which is the bigger the distance between your value system and the value system of the CEO, that's how miserable you're going to be. So the bigger that gap, the more unhappy you're going to be.
No wonder you're unhappy, Bug.
Always happy, man. Go ahead, David.
Sorry.
Please, Josh is the CEO, so he's sort of the nutty part of our little duo. Go ahead.
I got that. Well, so that's the best. The best part of being a CEO is your value system is the value system of the company, and if you hire right, it's going to be the value system of everyone in the company. And that's ultimately the goal. I would say the same thing is true as a CEO. You don't necessarily need to be best friends with everyone that works for you, but you do want to like them and you want to feel that they've got a similar moral compass to you. I feel that when you can do that, that eliminates a whole lot of problems that are otherwise avoidable. And again, you're always going to make, no matter how thorough you are, you're always going to make some hiring mistakes. But that's the other piece of advice. Like when you make a hiring mistake, fire fast, because it's the only thing that's been 100% true in my professional career. There's not a single time in 35-year career that I've had the thought that I should fire someone and then where I didn't regret it. So if you have the thought that someone's not the right fit, cut your losses.
Hey, cut bait, buddy. Cut bait.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Josh?
So I agree with your philosophy about hiring right. One of the three things we hire on is fit. If you can't fit the team and you're going to be a, thorn in everyone else's side, you don't get hired in the first place, because you don't need a spoiled apple killing the cart.
Yeah, ironically, skills is the third quality I look for. The actual skill for the role. It's humility first, curiosity second, and then skill set third.
So mine are fit, self-initiative, and then architecture. We do software. So
there you go. Yeah. And, from my point of view, curiosity and humility are basically culture fit to me. It's like if someone doesn't have humility and they don't have curiosity, they're probably not a good culture fit.
So if you go back, David, to you were 25, just I know for all of us, that's much less gray hair ago. For some of you, that's more of what I have up here up top. As a matter of fact, I have none of that on top, so we won't go there. When you're at 25 and you're looking out there, what attractive, and again, this is for people who are new in the game. We're not talking about those who are seasoned, those of you who are just starting out and you're looking to learn from a CEO. And you described that, you made a lot of money for somebody who may have had an interesting moral compass. We'll leave it at that. What good fits if you're thinking somebody is thinking, I want to be a CEO one day, but first let me go learn from another CEO. What are those characteristics that will help them to move past that I want to be a CEO phase of working for somebody to transitioning over to I am a CEO, and these are the characteristics that I should incorporate into my own philosophy?
So I have a few thoughts there. I feel like wanting to be a CEO could be the problem in and of itself, right? Meaning like the fact that you might be CEO is because there's something you're really excited about doing and you think you're the right person to drive it, right? It's kind of like politicians. Anyone who wants to be a politician maybe shouldn't be, right? Anyone who wants to be a CEO, to be a CEO, to be the boss, maybe shouldn't be. People get it backwards. I think that when you do it right, the CEO, if you're, you serve the people you lead, not the other way around. And, people think, oh, if I'm the CEO, if I start my own company, I can work on my golf game and, all the profits are going to be mine and I can do what no, everyone's your boss. Every customer is your boss. Your employees are your boss. Your shareholders are your boss. Your board of directors is your boss. And, yeah, some of the profits are going to be yours, but all the losses are going to be yours too. So, a lot of people fancy themselves entrepreneurs, but when the rubber meets the road, it's not what most people really are cut out for, to be honest.
And this is actually why I like talking to you just quick. This is our second kind of conversation as I think a lot of people really would say something like that. They would attempt to say, you know what, you have a lot of customers and they're not always the people who are paying you money. And this is spoken like somebody who's been through the crucible and saying, yeah, you had a lot more customers than you anticipated. And maybe you might want to rethink that idea of being a CEO because maybe there's somebody else more capable than you are.
Well, in fact, that's one of the biggest mistakes. So when I was CEO of a Forex prop trading firm down in Miami, and I hired a COO. My specific goal was to make it so that within a year he could do my job somewhat, as close enough to how well I could do it. Right. I wanted to make myself as replaceable as possible. The guy I mentor now, 25-year-old, we're looking at a 9-figure exit here early next year, and only launched the company in August. And again, same thing. We're doing everything we can to make him as replaceable as possible. Really good leaders, really good CEOs. They're not worried about someone replacing them. In fact, they try to facilitate it.
I think so. So if in doing your background, I realized that you're keen not only on, training others. You've indicated you mentor quite a few people, that you work with folks who are looking to exit or even at the other side of it, getting started up and moving and scaling and everything like that. Something that sometimes plagues people who are in the leadership role is health. Talk me through how you've adapted yourself over the years to both, and this is going to some background stuff, transitioning from when the doctor told you something to now here's how you address health issues as being the person on the firing line and always have to stay up late, got to worry about more than anything besides yourself.
Yeah, so there's some things I got right and there's some things I got wrong. I was an athlete my whole life. I was a Division I college wrestler. I was a competitive triathlete for years after that. So I was always very fit, but I didn't necessarily take, and my diet was always good. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, the thing you were alluding to. I was misdiagnosed with terminal cancer when I was 24 and given 6 months to live. So I definitely don't take my health for granted. That's for sure. But even me doing those things, not drinking, not doing drugs, not smoking, eating well, exercising, even though I was doing all of those things, there were still some things I fundamentally got wrong. I remember when I was in business school, I took pride in the fact that I only slept like 3 hours a night, like Sunday through Thursday for 2 years. If I did that today, I think I'd be dead. Literally, I don't think I could physiologically do it. But in hindsight, it was so stupid of me. Like I really underestimated how important sleep is, getting really good sleep. And the reality is, getting those 3 or 4 hours of, extra sleep actually make you so much more productive for the rest of the time. And I really underestimated that. And I think that, in today's day and age, the Alex Hormozis of the world, all the folks like that, it's grind, 24/7, 365. There's a period of time where we're grinding really hard, where you're building up your skill, your talent stack makes some sense. But you've got to at least be taking care of your health in order to facilitate that. And the reality is, while it might sound cool that, you're only sleeping a few hours a night, life's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and you need to treat it like that. And, you see it, I would say it's a little bit less common now about, the younger generation isn't drinking as much alcohol, though they're probably having more THC related products than when we were growing up.
For sure.
And some other, psychedelics and things along those lines. But the reality is there's a huge percentage of the population that are functional alcoholics. I mean, they just are. I mean, alcohol is not your friend. What I do is, again, I never drank a drop of alcohol till I was 35. Now, the way I do it now is I only allow myself 6 days a year to drink. So I treat it as currency. So anyone that knows me knows that I only drink 6 days a year. So if let's say it's a close friend's birthday and I'm using one of my 6 days, he or she knows I don't normally drink. So it's almost like, oh, wow, Dave is spending one of his 6 days on my birthday, anniversary, whatever it might be. So I do it that way. And that way, because I think that, when you just say, I just don't drink. And again, there's nothing wrong with abstaining. That's probably the best thing to do. But that's sort of my middle ground that I've taken is I just do it 6 days a year. But the other thing I've learned as I've gotten older, and this is having been a Division I athlete and a competitive triathlete, I overtrained by orders of magnitude. What I now realize is, and in the same way the fear food pyramid was completely backwards, so was how I was doing exercise. The reality is, if you use the right technology and the right approach, the totality of my resistance and cardiovascular training is 80 minutes a week. I can stay, in the top, 1% of people my age working out 80 minutes a week. And I'm in the top 5% of 25-year-olds. I mean, I can do 75 push-ups unbroken. My VO2 max is in the mid 50s. That would put me in the, top 5% of 25-year-olds. And then that's with me only working out 80 minutes a week. So, be consistent and, and be smart about how you do it. And you can really stay fit without having to take a ton of time. Now, if you want to spend 2 hours in the gym for your mental health and socializing, that's totally fine. But for me, it's about efficiency.
Have you, and I know you touched on sports, which is so weird that Josh has never jumped in on this, because if you say sports to him, typically it's like a bloodhound. He hits a scent. So I'm waiting for him to jump on it, since he wrote for some rag in Miami, because you didn't mention that once. Early.
Well, since he's notioning to that, where'd you wrestle? What school?
Brown.
Yeah.
We were 10th in the country in my senior year, having nothing to do with me. I was a very good high school wrestler and a very mediocre college wrestler.
What was your weight division?
134. So I was having to cut 22 pounds a week from November to March from,
Ouch.
Yeah, it was brutal.
You wear that sweat jacket and
My record was I lost 12 pounds in 3 hours. That's the most I lost in the shortest period of time.
Damn.
So.
Dang. Man, you're an animal, man. I mean, seriously.
I was insane. I will tell you one funny side story. This is back probably about eight years ago, I think it was. I think it's the only time my wife didn't like me very much. So I didn't let myself get really out of shape, but I put on a few pounds. And so I decided I was going to do like a Biggest Loser challenge at my gym. And I just wanted to see if I could go as hard as I did back when I was in college, right? It was just like a mental thing. And it was only a 6-week challenge. I was a lunatic. I was working out like 3 hours a day. My wife was not happy with me. I'm like, there's only two chances. I either win this competition or I'm dead. Those are the only two possibilities. And I think I lost the most percentage body fat above the second place person by more than 100%. So I was like a nut. So
You know what? God, man. So would you think that kind of hardcore competitiveness came from when you were a wrestler, or and then may have been transition? Because I get a sense that when you were wrestling or you were challenging yourself in the gym or cutting 12 pounds and like, oh my God, that may have helped you or guided you to success inside of your various businesses. Would you say competitiveness really did help you versus somebody who may have not got into sports in a young age?
well, I think that I give my dad an awful lot of credit here. Well, I'm just a hair under 5'8" now, so I'm not a giant now. But when I was growing up, back when I was growing up, now you probably would get fired for this, but they used to line us up in size order, in height order. And I was the second shortest kid, I think, until I was like a junior in high school. And I was a senior in high school before I dated a girl who weighed less than me because I was just a really small kid. And I wanted to go out for the basketball team in seventh grade. And my dad's like, "You're 3 feet tall. You're going out for the wrestling team." I'm like, I don't want to roll around on a mat with another sweaty guy. Like, zero interest in that. And my dad basically didn't give me a choice. And the single best parenting decision he ever made. So much of my qualities, my good qualities, I can trace back to the hardships of wrestling. I mean, wrestling is a lot like life, because the one thing about wrestling, and I played 4 sports in high school and probably 8 or 9 sports competitively through my life. The thing that's different about wrestling is if you give me a kid in 7th grade, I don't care what's true about him. Tall, short, skinny, fat, slow, fast, dumb, smart, doesn't matter. If he does every single thing I tell him to by his senior year, he'll win 75% of his matches. I don't know any other sport that way. You need some amount of natural ability, eye-hand coordination, size, strength, speed, something. In wrestling, like in life, if you are the best prepared person, you won't always win, but you'll win most of the time.
Yeah, one of my best friends wrestled at ODU for his first 2 years of college, and then he got hurt and he had to stop. So
yeah, wrestling's it's not a fun sport. Anyone who says it's fun, I mean, it's great to win, sucks to lose. I will say this too. The other thing that's interesting: 2 best matches I ever wrestled, I lost both of them. They were guys who should have mopped the floor with me, and they were close matches. 2 best matches I ever wrestled, which is, again, another thing that's interesting about life is, to your point, I am very competitive, but people mistakenly think I'm competitive with other people. And I'm playfully competitive with other people. The person I'm really competitive with is myself. So the reason those matches were so satisfying was I know what I'm capable of, and that's the best I could have possibly wrestled. And so the matches I won where I didn't wrestle very well, and I feel good about it. So it's like, to me, it's like, you got to do your best. Leave it all out there, and then you feel good about it.
So I got a question. Do you have any siblings?
Older brother.
And are you competitive with him?
Actually, I really wasn't. He was competitive with me. He's 3.5 years older, and he wasn't a giant either, but he was bigger than me, and not just by age, but he was a little bit bigger for his age. So he wouldn't play with me unless I was good enough. Like I couldn't suck, or he wouldn't like play catch with me or anything like that. So when I played with kids my own age, because I was used to playing with someone 3.5 years older, I was really good for someone my age. So he has a lot to do with why I was a good athlete, I think. But I never felt competitive with him. I think he felt a little competitive with me, but I just loved him and looked up to him. So I just wanted to be like him.
So when you were talking about the 7th grader, all right, let's take that same mindset from the 7th grader who is whatever the accolades you said, they were short, whatever, and go down the list. Would you say the same thing is true if you took a new CEO or someone who's just getting into it and taking that same mindset and saying, if you do this, 75% of your business, again, we don't have a guarantee out there, we don't have a crystal ball, but if you do, because I've been a competitor, I've been in the game, I know how this game is played, how it's won, and how it's lost. Could you say you could do the same thing in your capacity now, as you're you've gone beyond, you've exited a couple times? Would you say you can do the same thing for a new CEO who would say, Dave, I want to be that Division I player in the business, in the sport of business?
I actually think the percent's 90%. So I do. So my experience is 90% of the time, any business can be fixed. Any broken business can be fixed. 10% of the time you're screwed and there's nothing you can do. Sometimes there's externalities. Sometimes it's a competitive landscape issue. Sometimes it's an economy issue. There's a whole bunch of reasons why, sometimes it's just unfixable. The one complete failure that I had, business that just went to zero, we were just 5 years too early. The technology, we were using LiDAR technology. We were trying to get into the government space. And so we were just a bit early. So I think, so 90% of the time, I think that if you have the right preparation, the guy, like I said, the guy I'm coaching, who's got this menu fit app, 25-year-old first time CEO, never had a single like regular job in his life. And he is shepherding this company with some guidance from me, but he's doing all the heavy lifting. He just uses me as sort of like, hey, I've got this situation. How should I deal with it? So yeah, I think that if you have the right team around you and you're open, again, you have that humility, curiosity. And I guess the other one is you've just got to have like a relentlessness about you, right? It's entrepreneurship. I forget what Elon Musk's quote was, something along the lines of being a CEO is like, chewing on broken glass and staring into the abyss. He's not completely wrong. Almost every business will hit, several situations that look unfixable. Almost every single one. I mean, I don't even know the story about FedEx where, Fred Smith couldn't make payroll, so he went to a casino and put it on black. I mean, if it hit red instead of black, there'd be no FedEx. No, not every company comes that close, but more companies come a lot closer than you think.
I remember hearing the story of the founder of ClickFunnels, and he was saying something like that. He said the IRS closed my doors, and I had money problems and everything like that. He said, "What do you do, man?" I went out there and sold something. I was like, seriously, just went. And he went from a large revenue and large personnel to like down to like 19 people. And he's like, dude, I was crying, I was sweating, I was praying. And he's like, what did you do? Hey, bet it on black and keep on moving. Okay.
Yep.
So it seems like that. So a lot of what we do here at Skyman is really talk about those relationships and building those relations and cultivating those. What would you say has been your greatest asset with regards to either building relationship, either in tech, funding, someone you really need to talk to, or someone to give you access to? What would you say are some of those fundamental relationship tools that you use every day that you can teach to someone else if they're humble enough to listen?
So I do think the landscape has changed quite a bit, right? So when I was coming up, there was no internet, there was no LinkedIn. The ability, things like masterminds and the way we think about them, those things didn't really exist. You could go to a Tony Robbins seminar, maybe that might have been the closest thing you could have done back in the day, but it was very different. So my advice today would be a bit different than how I did it, right? As an example, going to a college or a decent MBA program could have made a little bit of sense to have access to the alumni network. But nowadays, the ROI there just doesn't make any sense. And there's better ways to create a network, Like I probably beg my daughter not to go to college. I'm like, I'd rather just give you the money and have you put it in Bitcoin and you'd be better off. And so I think that today it's really more about, being the least experienced, youngest person in as many rooms as you can possibly get in. Buy your way in, beg your way in, whatever it takes, getting in those rooms. And the other thing is, most people think, well, hey, if I'm a young kid early in my career, what could I possibly do to help out that guy who's worth $100 million? You'd be surprised, right? The reality is, as an example, let's say that you wanted to, so if someone was 20 years old today and they wanted to spend the next 90 days becoming an expert in AI, they could be in the top 10th of the top 1% of people in the world in AI in 90 days if they wanted to. And then they could go to a whole bunch of old people like me and be like, helping me out with some, hey, Dave, would you, let me help you out with setting up some email agents to go through all of your email and create summaries for you or whatever. You can almost always find a way. The other thing is, most people that aren't sociopaths have had someone in their career that's helped them and they want to reciprocate, right? I mean, part of why, I've mentored people for so long, in the vast, vast, vast majority of the cases, there was no financial benefit to me whatsoever for the mentorship that I did. That's not why I did it. That's not why I do it now. The reason I do it is people are really helpful to me. I want to be helpful in return. I wasn't able to find the kind of mentor that I wanted, what I call a holistic mentor. I think people mistakenly think of things that really are an apprenticeship and they think it's a mentorship. An apprenticeship is something where someone's teaching you a skill. They're teaching you about commercial real estate. They're teaching you about fitness. They're teaching you about, that's not a mentorship. That's an apprenticeship. You're learning a skill. Maybe you're paying to learn that skill. A mentorship is different. To me, a real mentorship is someone who you want to be like, right? Someone who's got all the pillars. They have their health. They have their relationships. They're mentally healthy. They've been successful. They're decent, decent human being. And unfortunately, those are few and far between. So my advice now is get in as many rooms as you can, where you're the least intelligent, least successful, youngest person that you possibly can be, and in as many of those rooms as you can. If there's anything you're going to spend money on apprenticeships and spend money on getting into some of those rooms.
So to that point, and because of AI and because of some of the technology out there, and you alluded to the younger, get into those young, but what happens if somebody is a little longer in the tooth because of whatever reason their company downsized or something like that? Would you use the same advice for somebody in their 40s, possibly in their 50s, moving out of the employee status and moving more into the small business owner status? Would you use that same advice?
It'd be a little different. It would be a little bit different. It would depend a little bit on, so a person, let's say that they're in their early 40s, and and again, today the companies are downsizing like crazy because of
like
AI.
Crazy,
right?
Especially if they're tech heavy. I mean, left and right. Amazon is like kicking people out left and right. Google's firing people like it's tomorrow. Okay.
By the tens of thousands, like it's not hundreds or thousands, it's tens of thousands. It's scary out there for sure. So if someone was in their early 40s, part of it would depend on what they were trying to accomplish, right? And what resources they had available to them. Those would be the two biggest variables. So as an example, let's say they had, $500,000 socked away in a 401k that they could borrow against, and they had an idea that they wanted to execute against. I might strongly encourage them to start something on their own. If, in some cases, someone like that, they want to, let's say they've always been in accounting and they want to shift to a different functional role, then I might take I might apprentice for someone who's, can teach me the ropes and that new skill set, if you will. So it would depend on a few variables about the kind of advice I would give them, but it would be different than if it was someone young. Someone who's really young, you can play the youth card and be like, the naive, kid just being like, hey, can you be helpful to me just because I'm a young kid? 40-year-old can't really say that.
You would look a little odd if you showed up and said, can you teach me something well, you could do at 40, but I don't know, you calling yourself a kid at 45 might be pushing the line a little bit more. So I guess as we are kind of rapid fire moments now, if someone say it's saying, what does winning financially look like and what it should not look like? Real fast, what would you say real quick? If you had somebody for 30 seconds and they ask you that question, you're in the elevator, shoot me your quick fire answer.
The big mistake I think people are making is they're thinking about investing the way we used to think about money. So I'm going to put money in my 401k and I'm going to put it in an index fund and, continue to contribute over a 25-year career, 30-year career, whatever, and then I'll be fine. Those days are gone. Like if you're not terrified about the monetary system right now, you're not thinking it through.
For real.
And it's really hard to predict what's going to happen. I mean, look at what's happening in crypto, the stock market, everything's all over the place. So the way I think about it now is you have to think about the three biggest things that you need to be making your investments in. And this doesn't matter what age you are. You need to be thinking about how you build your personal brand. You need to think about how you build up your network, and you need to think about how you're building up your talent stack. What are the things you're good at? Right. And by the way, those things don't have to necessarily be connected. It's not like, well, what the general rule of thumb is if you can spend 100 hours a year, which is roughly like less than 20 minutes a day on learning a new skill, you'll be in the top 5% of everyone in the world for that thing. So if you spent 60 minutes a day on 3 different skills in a year, you'd be in the top 5% of all 3 of those skills. Be intentional about doing those things. Always be adding things to your talent stack, always be building out your network, and always be doing things to build up your personal brand. So that's where I would focus my time and energy because those things can't be taken from you. Your skills can't be taken away from you. Your network can't be taken away from you. You just have to invest, in your personal brand. If you're doing it right, can't be taken away from you. So that's where I invest my time and energy.
I think that's important too, because you indicated that your personal brand is important. It is that brand because no matter what job or title or whatever you have or what company you wear on your shoulder, on your baseball cap or whatever, what you have with you, that skill set, that brand, that can travel with you regardless of where you are in North America or the rest of the globe. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to, if someone is listening now to us, hopefully a lot of people are listening to us now, and if you're not, too bad for you. You better get on time, whatever. How do people reach out to you? I mean, you have your your podcast, but I'm also looking at, gutmanmedia.com if they want to be able to circle back to either, find you as, a podcast source, but also someone, if they need a mentor or something like that, or just somebody to bounce ideas of how else would folks be able to track you down or hunt you down or stalk you on the internet?
Well, so across all my socials and my YouTube, I'm at Real Dave Guttman. Across all of them, they're all identical. But I would say just go to my website, gutmanmedia.com, fill out the form. It's like just email address, name, and what you're interested in talking to me about. I review every single one of those. And look, for most people, I'm happy to give someone some of my time, see if they're actually serious. If I could be helpful, again, from my misdiagnosis, my promise to the world was if I could touch someone's life in a positive way, at every opportunity to do so, I would take it. So, I'm happy to be helpful to people. As long as it's not a giant chunk of my time, I'm happy to just be helpful.
I appreciate that one, David. And I did promise you I'd have an off the cuff question, because I didn't, we were just too much into the secret sauce. If you had to identify with one character that's fictional or otherwise, who would that be, and why would you identify with this particular character? Again, superhero, movie star, or famous musician. Pick your poison. It's up to you.
So my favorite book was Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and there's my two favorite characters in the book are Dagny Taggart, and my daughter's middle name is Dagny after Dagny Taggart from the book. My favorite male character is Hank Rearden. He's an industrialist who's what I like about him is he's very capable, but he has a great moral compass, and he isn't just about beating other people. He's about trying to do his best. And I would say if there's anyone I try to, he's also he's more human than a lot of our other characters. He's got flaws like we all do, and I just liked. So if there's anyone I try to emulate, it's actually that character from that book more than anybody.
Wow. Great advice. Great advice. Thank you, David, for being here on another episode with us here at Skyman and the Bug. And I know you're busy, running your podcast and a number of other things that you do to keep, your life moving forward after, certain things happen when you were misdiagnosed. But thank you very much for being here today and sharing your moments with us.
Thanks, guys, for having me on. Much appreciated.
You are very welcome.
Thank you, David.
All righty. And if you're listening like everybody else out there and you don't know where to turn to if you need some advice or you need some guidance or you need just a starting place, of course, come to Skyman and the Bug. But if you also need to roll over to David's podcast, go ahead and roll over, and hopefully you'll roll back over here as well. So thank you for being here. Subscribe, share, and like, and we'll see you on another episode of Skyman and the Bug. You've been listening to
The Skyman
and the Bug. We appreciate you being here. Join us again for another episode of Skyman and the Bug. And if you have any questions, reach out to us either on LinkedIn, Facebook, and other places that you just try to find us.
Take care.
Bye.